Planetary Dynamics, Writings by Sarah Kalvin. The Challenge of a Sharp Destiny, Part 3, featured horoscope, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. A freshman, Democrat U.S. Congresswoman. The vibrant and outspoken Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, from the 14th District of New York, has Jupiter and Saturn in an opposition aspect in her natal chart. This is a sharp destiny that differs somewhat from the one defined by a square between the two significators that has been discussed in the analysis of the charts of Anthony Bourdain and John McCain. Jupiter and Saturn in square aspect animate a heightened moral struggle that encourages the native to align their behavior in accordance with principles of right action. The same indicators, in opposition aspect, as seen in the horoscope of Ocasio-Cortez, is described in the following passage, found on page 124, of the Essentials of Astrological Analysis by Mark Edmund Jones. Jupiter and Saturn in opposition aspect indicate an ordering of life's fundamental motives, through which the native is usually compelled to dramatize himself continually in the presence of his fellows, at least if he wishes to participate with them in any course of everyday experience. This necessity often tends to throw a given lifetime into two entirely separate periods, with the latter revealing greater depth and continuity of realization, as perhaps an unsuspected consequence of the mirroring it has given itself through some more superficial role-playing in the former. There may be either a prodigal expenditure of the self's resources, with their ultimate recapture in a refinement of soul, or a moral vacillation that accentuates every weakness of character, and so encourages a surrender to a final and hopeless ineptitude. The activist, and unapologetic socialist candidate Ocasio-Cortez, in a surprising upset, defeated Joe Crowley, the 10-term Democrat caucus chair, in the midterm election primaries held on June 26, 2018. She then went on to win victory over Republican Anthony Pappas, in the November 6, 2018 general election. Ocasio-Cortez was 29 years old, when Saturn in transit approached the first of its three possible returns, and dramatically activated her sharp destiny. This first activation subsequently propelled events that would prove the aspect's primary characteristic explained by Jones, that through an increasing awareness, the life can be thrown into two distinct periods. It is well known that Ocasio-Cortez's life was spent in far less significant fashion as a waitress and bartender, before successfully acquiring the status as the youngest member ever to be elected to the U.S. Congress. This extreme and consequential turnabout in life direction gives stark witness to the powers of the sharp destiny, facilitated through the opposition between Jupiter and Saturn, that are the departmental pair of motivation. Throughout the time of Saturn's transiting pilgrimage toward its natal location in the first house, it periodically traveled direct, went retrograde, and also stationed closely with its sensitive point of origin, before its final pass of natal Saturn, 1 month after her historic win. For Ocasio-Cortez, the Saturn return will forever be known as the major astrological indicator of the start of her career in politics. However, recognition must be given to other planetary actors in play at the same time as the Saturn return. The native's launch into her more significant life role was also synchronous with transit Jupiter, as it partnered in a passing conjunction with natal Pluto. Transit Pluto at the same time, as it approached the second house cusp, was in square with the natal Sun. The pressures of a square, from the planet of transformative possibilities, gave impetus to the Sun, which is the symbolic representative of one's true purpose and vital potentials. Success came with the transit of the greater benefic, lending its good fortune through the support of the masses in concert with the Sun, which represents the native herself, in her role to be played on the political stage. Pluto's transit ingress into the second house signaled the native's upcoming position on the House Financial Services Committee. She would also secure a seat on the Committee for Oversight and Government Reform, also pointing to Pluto, the planet known to encourage reformation and transformation, toward a higher expression of conscious behavior, of either an individual or group entity. The complex cross. At the core of the chart, is a complex configuration, that may include up to 8, out of the 10 planets. It is a coalescence of energies that can manifest in one of two possible ways, depending on the orb allowance given by the astrologer. The aspect structure is a grand square with 6 planets, if the orb chosen is 10 degrees for the planets, Sun and Moon. If the astrologer uses Mark Edmund Jones orbs, of 17 for the Sun, and 12.5 for the Moon, the grand square would then include 8 planets, that would now integrate the Sun and Mars into the 4-pronged cross. But using the narrower 10-degree orb, reveals that the same horizontal opposition, is used to form both the grand square, as well as a separate T-cross. An examination of the chart structure, reveals the details of the complexity. The sharp destinies Saturn, flanked by Uranus and Neptune, all apply in opposition to Jupiter in the 7th house. These 4 planets, establish the horizontal pole of the cross, that participates in perpendicular position to the Mercury-Moon opposition, that tightly hugs the midheaven and nadir respectively. The Sun, is also legitimately in square with Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune, because of its wide orb allowance of 17 degrees, suggested by Jones. With this wide orb, the Sun is also in opposition with the Moon, and 17 minutes just over orb of a conjunction with Mercury. With wide orbs, the Sun is tightly associated with the grand square, and becomes the planetary liaison between the two forms of focal determinator crosses. By translation of light, Mars, in a conjunction aspect with the Sun, is also drawn into the grand square. But with narrow orbs, the Sun and Mars become the point focus of a T-cross, that utilizes the same horizontal opposition as the grand square, as mentioned previously. Unlike a T-cross that naturally has an outlet toward the squaring planet in its configuration, the grand square can tend to dissipate the life energies, with a sense of confusion, of where to focus one's attention, unless one of the 4 prongs stands out in focal determination. In viewing this chart, Jupiter is alone in the Western Hemisphere, and is identified as a singleton, if one ignores Mercury's slight lean to the west by a few degrees. Jupiter is also in high focus, as the handle of the bucket temperament type. The singleton is the resolution to the problem, of too many areas of interest, that often in a grand square, causes an unexpected and undesirable ineptitude. There are several other planets vying for attention as high-focus focal determinators, seeking to be acknowledged, as the maximum point of interest in the horoscope. There is super-empowered Mercury, due to its position as elevated and conjunct the midheaven, and is considered a focal determinator itself. If using narrow orbs, there is the conjunction of the Sun and Mars, in point focus of a T-cross, that also is considered a focal determinator. In the final analysis, Jupiter draws the native's attention to the area in the chart, that dominates over other less significant points of interest, and expresses the theme of the life, as defined by the planet's meaning, the sign wherein it is contained, and its house placement. Jupiter is the planet, along with its partner Saturn, that defines the native's personal consciousness, and outlines how the life will take shape in a moral motivation of soul. These two energies, that form a sharp destiny, work together through an opposition in the chart, but Jupiter's enthusiasm takes precedence over Saturn's solemnity, because it is the high focus handle of the bucket temperament type, and a singleton in hemisphere. Jupiter, paternalistic and optimistic, is in the sign of encompassing Cancer. In this way, the outgoing nature of the native is encouraged to continually seek opportunities for expansion, and because the planet is placed in the 7th house, it enjoys working in stride with others, on a one-to-one equal basis. The natural disposition. The preponderance of oppositions in the chart are all in cardinal signs. They manifest an immediacy in attitude, that urges an ambitious outlook on life. For Ocasio-Cortez, it assists in maintaining a sharp focus on all opportunities available, to take advantage and make use of her talents. The cardinal disposition also defines the congresswoman as restless, self-directed, and crisis-oriented, and endows her with an exciting and charismatic quality, that aids in attracting the attention she so dearly covets. When functioning in the positive, cardinal individuals are problem solvers, and live to be needed and admired. Jupiter and Saturn, and the accompanying planets of significance, form the needed core opposition of the temperament type, so that there is backbone to the character, that helps thrust the native forward to courageously accomplish her goals. Mercury and the Moon, form the delimiting rim opposition of the bowl segment of the pattern, and act to restrain the emotions, and help give the native time to think before acting. These contradictory features, of the core opposition, charging forward unrestrained, coupled with the delimiting opposition, holding back when necessary, helps balance the multifaceted attributes, shown in the chart. 7th house challenges, and 10th house authority. As well as harmonious interactions, the 7th house is also the indicator of any pushback or challenges from others to the native's intentions. It is the place of competition, conflict, and direct combat, but when handled with real moral authority, which the sharp destiny can provide, the congresswoman becomes a force for cooperation and compromise, in order to reach any lofty goals she has in her sights. With narrow orbs, the combined energies of the Sun and Mars, point their release in the direction of the 10th house of career, honor, and authority, which Ocasio-Cortez has begun to acquire at an early age, through holding a seat in the House of Representatives, since the 2018 U.S. midterm elections. Ocasio-Cortez has brought to the political scene, and at times, characteristic overexuberance, powered by a naturally energized Sun-Mars conjunction, and an outgoing and cheerful, high-focus Jupiter. The liberties she takes in her mercurial outspokenness, and authoritarian determination, already in her relatively short career, has been demonstrated at congressional hearings and media appearances, when chastising those not living up to the promises they made as public servants. Soft aspects assisting the hard. Only natal Pluto and Venus stand apart from the stress and strain of the foundational structure, and by contrast, lend the horoscope a much-needed relief of tension through a series of sextiles and trines, that are integrated within the formidable challenging squares and oppositions. There are no hard aspects, to, or from, Pluto and Venus, with any other planets in the horoscope. The high-focus Jupiter applies in trine to Pluto, while Venus graciously receives a trine from the Moon, as well as a sextile from Mercury. These two forces become the reins of the entire configuration, and add supportive direction for the expansion of potentials seen at the descendant, which is the place of forthcoming opportunity. Past dynamic charting. The dynamic conjunctions of progressed Sun and Mercury took their turn joining forces with natal Pluto, to deepen the understanding of the native's creative role in life, throughout 2014. The Sun's conjunction brought to life the deeper side of herself, and put Ocasio-Cortez in touch with those of like kind, associated with the 11th house placement of Pluto. Friends and associates became powerful connections that helped manifest the native's political aims. 1 year later, progressed Mercury assisted in forming more specific ideals and objectives, with its own passage over natal Pluto. Major transits also played a great part in the native's maturing process, when Pluto passed over the 3 natal planets in the first house, from 2008 to 2013. This was followed by a refinement of character, with Saturn's passage of the same planets, throughout 2018, that included her first Saturn return. Ocasio-Cortez came into her powers when the stimulation of the sharp destiny's Jupiter-Saturn opposition brought radical change to her life in 2018, and laid the groundwork for years to come. Future possibilities. Mark Edmund Jones defines astrology as the science of probability. Looking forward to what may possibly occur is a tempting pastime for astrologers. It is contrary to the humanistic approach, where the astrologer encourages the client to use astrology for self-realization, as opposed to seeking advantages in the manipulation of circumstances. But it can bring personal gratification and public recognition to an astrologer, who can prove their talents through prophecy. Identifying major transits and secondary progressions to natal planets is astrology's way of pushing the curtain aside to reveal future possibilities. Dynamic aspects that are indicators of profound development for Ocasio-Cortez will take effect in the years to come. If the adept congresswoman maintains her career in politics, she will have experience in legislation by the time the dynamic aspects mature. Future progressions will provide her with all the necessary planetary support needed to advance her career toward greater accomplishment, if she is able to rise to the occasion of the forthcoming cluster of progressions. Future progressions. In the search for significant progressed aspects, Mars stands out in its upcoming conjunction with natal Pluto, commencing on October 20, 2030. The conjunction takes place at 14 degrees 8 minutes Scorpio. This degree is unique, in that it is at the center of one of the 4 power points of the zodiac. The 4 fixed signs, Scorpio, Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius, do not border with either of the 2 important meridians, making up the horoscopic wheel. Their freedom from time limitations connects them to non-ordinary states of consciousness, with the capacity to manifest moral and spiritual revelations onto the physical plane. This anticipated aspect promises to propel an intense release of potentials that are described by the Sabian symbol, 15 Scorpio, children playing around 5 mountains of sand. This is a symbol of absolute self-integrity, at a simple extreme of social consciousness, or of the human spirit in its nascent competence for meeting all possible eventualities. There is here a dramatization of the psychological faculties, as a means for contact with other people, and of the illimitable capacity for experience, in any situation where man may find himself. The individual is able to deal with whatever may arise in the circumstances of his being, and to commit himself to whatever proves to be worthwhile. The key word is naivete. When positive, the degree is a gift for a continual discovery of new and effective facets of selfhood, and when negative, wholly purposeless ineptitude. For Ocasio-Cortez, the positive of the degree may very well bring her career into new horizons, thanks to its connection to higher forces that the 4 power signs of the zodiac offer. Squares, conjunctions, and oppositions, from progressed planets to natal, are more noticeable to a native than soft aspects, because of the stresses they produce, especially when a native resists change. Sextiles and trines, on the contrary, indicate momentum and assistance, and a general continuing flow of conveniences that were set in motion at the times of the more challenging and productive hard aspects. When calculating the dates, when aspects enter, are exact, and then completed, one should look for corresponding events, even before and after the actual astrological timing, because of the possibility that birth times are not exact, and rectification is not always reliable. Mars will be exact in its conjunction to natal Pluto, April 8, 2032, and completes the intense interaction on September 25, 2033. When the conjunction of Mars to Pluto begins, it will occur in the midst of an array of progressed moon squares, which exacerbate the tension around the conjunction. The progressed moon will square the planets in the 1st and 7th houses, from the 10th house of career, honor, and authority, and foretells of either a devastating fall from power, or the exact opposite, the rise to a high position in the political arena, one that will have been well anticipated by her supporters and admirers. A reasonable prognostication is that the native may launch a campaign or project during this 3-year period, one that requires a vast amount of energy and focus. And to assist her efforts, during the exact phase of the Mars conjunction of Pluto, is another flurry of progressed moon aspects, but in this case, they are supportive conjunctions, sextiles and trines, aimed at various natal planets. Whether supported by soft or hard aspects from the progressed moon, the conjunction of Mars, the planet of initiative or start of experiences, with the planet that has rulership over the most profound events of our lives, there is no doubt that Ocasio-Cortez will continue to impress the American public, with her unrelenting influence and driving force, thanks to the pull of her sharp destiny, and the bucket temperament with its missionary zeal. The complexity of the chart is unique, whether the astrologer chooses wide or narrow orbs for planetary aspects, and the congresswoman mirrors the complexity and uniqueness in her daily duties as a U.S. representative. However, there is one more highly coveted feature of the horoscope that is worthy of mention. Effective from birth and throughout her entire life, Ocasio-Cortez is blessed with the Sun positioned directly on the fixed star Spica. This star among stars is one of the most gracious stellar influences in the heavens, as it lavishes its light and goodness through the light of the star in the horoscope of the promising young legislator. There is great good fortune in its position in the 10th house, relating its influence toward an illustrious political career, which is already well on its way to success, in the service of the people of the United States of America.